Okay, namaste, namaste, beautiful family of light. I'm here on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. So I'll be looking at both spots to bring forth this message. My name is Reverend Sharon Elizabeth, also known as Baba Sharon, here at the Cosmic Center Spiritual Light, located in Sarasota, Florida. And we are here now with our beautiful light workers who are presently here in the Cosmic Center Sanctuary, which is a portal of light, as well as those that are on Zoom. And whenever this comes across your feed, no Facebook Live, on Facebook, social media, it is always at the divinely appointed time in the eternal now. And speaking of that, I was just going to mention that, when we step out and go beyond our fears and being our authentic selves and, kind of grappling as we go forward, is like, we are in this like really, really powerful frequency of what they call the illusion or Maya. Okay, but finding our way out of it, which is no simple task, but yes, we can. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But I was really personally myself, although I'm out there and a public figure, I really have this part of me that's very shy. I would prefer to work behind the scenes, instead of being out there. But the idea of being out there was like, no, you got to go ahead and do it and go beyond my fears. And I actually got a message from somebody from Italy. Okay. And they had asked about, I do wear these shields, like Shield of David, and he did see that, and he did reach out from Italy asking where did I get it and how could he get it. And I did give him that information. So just to say, truly, truly, we are a global network now. And it's important to keep that in mind, because what I want to say is that I've talked about, going beyond our fear, but I really want to talk into that on a whole nother level. And I'm going to tell you about this dream experience I had. So, one of the things here, and we are at the age of Aquarius, and if you listen to some of the things I've done in the past, this is the age where all things that have been covered up or oppressed or put to the side is now bubbling up. Even the sacred earth is now revealing her secrets that she has kept within her body. And what it's doing, it's forcing us. I mean, it is forcing us, okay, to look at it and to kind of get unchecked out of the programming we've had or the indoctrination we have had. Okay, before you can say, well, I'm not sure. Now it's in your face. They were like, oh, the oldest structure is the pyramids. Not necessarily, because Göbekli Tepe came about. Like what? And it's probably something more ancient than that. I most certainly been to Pumapunku, Tinawaku, and I could tell you, no caveman made that stuff, okay? That I can promise you. They're not sure how old it is. I personally think it's pre-flood, myself personally. So we have to wrap our mind around that the things that we have been told, and not to say some of it is what they truly believe until new information comes in, right? And then in that new information that they have to restructure. But also, there is that tendency with humans that are in a position of, say, power or prestige, or they've come along with an ideology that they were very convinced of that was correct, and then some new information comes in to at least challenge that perspective, right? That's, we're supposed to grow, and new information comes out, or consciousness evolves and moves forward. But what has happened with humanity, some of those in humanity, where the tendency is, I did this thesis, okay? I don't want anything coming to challenge the thesis that I did. And I'm willing to close a blind eye to something that's glaring in my face to say, maybe you need to reconstruct this or rethink it. And that has been a lot. I'm sure of you have known about the Smithsonians, and that there were giants, and those bones were sent over the system, and all of a sudden they disappear because somebody had a certain agenda or what they thought was right, instead of having that where people can make up their own mind. You know what that's called? Control. Okay. Have we been controlled? Yes. Are we being controlled right now? Yes. Okay. And we have to understand, okay, that before we would say, oh, I remember when I was in school, I'd mentioned it once before. My generation, we were taught, well, all the poor people in the Soviet Union, they are just influenced by propaganda. And I said, wait a second, I think every culture is being ruled by propaganda, depending on what the agenda is, by the various powers that be, whatever the motives are. But this is where we are right now in the age of Aquarius. Guess what? We can go direct ourselves. We now have all the tools to do our own research. And I always say, I encourage everybody to do that. And why is that? Why is that? Because in my deep dive into ancient text, the Gnostic Gospels and other, okay, the message of Jesus the Christ was, I'm here to wake you up. So there's this whole one thing that says, oh, somebody's coming or something is coming to save us. No, we're going to save ourselves. How do we do that? By incorporating, okay, and moving into the higher frequency of Christ consciousness. That is how we become aware. That is how we have gnosis, direct knowing, saying, oh my gosh, I am a divine spark and I am a divine co-creator. Okay. And this thing that I'm in, which I never understood for many years as a young person, the Maya concept, this is an illusion. I was like, what does that mean? If you stick your finger into a fire, that'll burn. There's nothing illusionary about that. But now I understand the illusion is thinking that this is it, that this is the world, we have this body. And so some people, they identify so much with the body, they figured after the body goes, that's it. Okay, and this is where Jesus Christ had talked about when you can overcome death. Okay, and what does he mean by overcoming death? When you really understand what that is, it is the death of the body. And for some people, some Gnostics, they would say the body is the prison, although the body is also the temple because it holds the divine spark. And that is the part of it that is eternal. That is the part of us that is powerful, okay? And that is the part of us that knows the inner truth of everything. And it's almost like you have to move the debris, okay, of the limitation that we are in this physical world. So I want to give you an example of that. I had an experience where I was traveling, I'm going to say astral traveling, and I was with the help of someone. And this was a lady that was spoken about in the book by, what's his name, was Shako. Shirley MacLaine wrote her book Out on a Limb, and that was based on the story of this gentleman, okay, who told her his story, and he was there with her as a guide. And so it's the book regarding him. I was getting ready to go to actually to Bolivia, I think, or Peru. I don't remember which one. But anyway, it was a book that was written, I think, I don't know, maybe in the 1940s or 30s. I don't remember. I don't remember the name of the book right now. But how these things come about is at the divinely appointed time. So a book that was written maybe 50, 60 years or before I was even born is relevant in my life now, which is why everybody should do what they feel it is for them to do. You do not know how that's going to ripple out in time and space and who that might impact. I learned numerology from a lady who wrote a book in the 1800s that I use to this day. So it is very important that we be our authentic self and do what we feel that we are to do. But anyway, getting back at the story, I remember saying to myself, well, wow, he was able to, kind of do astral projection and go all over the place because he had the help of this lady who was a Palladian, right? And I said, yeah, that's easy for you to do. You got help. Lo and behold, one day, this lady shows up. She heard me. And the next thing I know, I'm doing the astral projection. I'm like really excited about it. And I'm traveling over New York. I see the roofs of the of the buildings in New York that I'm very familiar with, and I'm like inside a gymnasium, and just with my thought, I was able to unlock a key and a lock. It was an amazing experience. Anyway, bottom line is now to return, and I'm like telling her, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it." And she's with me energetically. And the minute I came back into my body, I could no longer see her. All right. I could no longer see her. Now, I knew energetically she was there, but I no longer had the ability to see her, which tells us the limitation, okay, of being in the physical body in the terms that we are not able to utilize the full spectrum of what we are a part of. So we're very limited to the five senses of the physical body. But those of us that are listening to this here now, we know we're tapped into the other senses that go beyond the physical body. And as in the Bible, as Jesus Christ had said, you look into a mirror dimly. Okay, now that's real important because we're at the point to bring that mirror into clarity. And that's going to require us tapping into our courage, tapping into our authenticity, and not falling into the trap of fear. Now, right now, okay, there is a huge, huge push because we are coming to a great crescendo. And there's basically, in my opinion, two timelines. Okay, we're going to go through the organic timeline that we already have in us, the codes within us, the codes within us for the ascension. Okay, now that means that we have to be awake and aware. And I actually did bring, this is amazing, first time I'm doing this. I am bringing this Bible. This is the George Lamis translation, and it is from the Aramaic, uh, coming directly from the Aramaic. So all of these Bibles, are different. And I've talked before, there's been all kind of Bibles, including a slave Bible that a lot of people were not aware of. In the slave Bible, they put some things in and they took some things out. Same thing with the Ethiopian Bible. That's one of the one that has most of the books that are in there. And again, there were things taken out of that. Why? By the Council of Nicaea. And that's why I think it's very important to know history so you can have a higher understanding as to the developments as to how things were. But the thing that I do want to mention on here is Ephesians 6. And Ephesians 6, it's interesting because I was not familiar with Ephesians 6. I was brought up Catholic, and so they pretty much read the Bible for you and told you what it was, as opposed to the Protestant where you actually study the Bible. So that has not been my experience except recently when I was an adult. And one of the things it says on here that I want to share with this, okay? I'm just going to read it. Servants, to obedient to your masters according to the flesh, with the reverence and the trembling, with a sincere heart as to Christ. Okay, let me find a part over here. Okay, and this is a different translation. Also, masters, do the same things for your servants, forgiving their faults, because you also have your own master in heaven, and there is no respect of persons with him. From henceforth, my brethren, be strong in our Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For your conflict is not only with flesh and blood, but also with the angels and with the powers, with the rulers of this world of darkness and the evil spirits under the heavens. Therefore, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to meet the evil one, and being prepared, you shall prevail. Arise, therefore, gird your loins with truth, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. When you go deeper into this message, we are at the time where this is very relevant. And right now, what's happening, and this is not new, it's been a repeated cycle over and over again, there is a large promotion of fear. thinking that you have nothing. What can I do up against this huge thing that looks is going to cause another war, that people are going to be in chaos, there's going to be a continuing Holocaust. Here we go again. All of this stuff that has us all like, oh my gosh, no. Okay. And your first reaction is that you're just, you know, you're just frozen. You're frozen. Take a deep breath, because this is our time to rise. This is the time that we said we will come in for this exact time, not to repeat the same rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall, but the rise and the ascension for so many and the entire planet. For those that don't want to go and refuse, okay, that's all right. But that's not stopping the rest of us who see this, who know this is our time to step into our truth, okay, and be all that we can be. And what is that going to require? That's going to us to require to have the courage to be in our authenticity, to really stand up in the depths and the truth of what we know to be true. And as I talked about last week, not be gaslighted. Because that gaslighting, as I said, it was the gospel of the Egyptians. I said gaslighting is not new. I talked about this last week. They're talking about gaslighting way back then. Gaslighting has always been to the point where the psychological warfare that could say, this is red. For most people, this looks red. But somebody said, no, it's not. It's green. And they said, no, it's red. And to gaslighting to the point where they begin to have you question what you know to be true. It is that precise. And now, okay, when you look at anything, you have to discern, because now with AI, they can recreate anything that looks like, feels like, okay, but what is your radar? Okay, your radar, as it says, you have the armor of God. You are connected to the higher realms of life. You are centered. You breathe and do what you need to do to maintain your balance, to stay connected. And in that connection, okay, even though the physical body has a limited amount of awareness in terms of the senses, its limitation, but this is why you must rise your vibration to tap into what's higher that you're a part of. Because that's the higher divine guidance that's going to have you maneuver through these times. And when you know that you're not by yourself. And real quickly, I'm going to tell you, I had a dream, and the dream was about Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael has come before, and Archangel Raphael. It was a whole thing about the upper tree of life, or the Sephirah. Okay, and we are rising in vibration, not as individuals, but also as a humanity, that we are tapping into a layer now where what we could not see visibly with our eyes, as our third eye, as we start becoming aware, as we start getting conscious, as we are on our path of light, we are starting to get accelerated, particularly those that have been on the path, who've committed to the path. Even if you've fallen off the path, you're back on the path. Whenever you're on the path, okay, the path of light, okay, the one that Jesus said, the path less traveled. And I had a whole dream about that. The path less traveled, you're going on the path that is narrow. That one requires courage and divine discernment with everything. It's like we have to now come within and follow our own inner guidance, because there's a lot of gaslighting out there. There's a lot of promotion for us to fall into what? Fear. When you have a group, and I got to tell you, I'm seeing young people now standing up in their power. And they're like, no, I'm not sure we're going to go along with that. I think something is wrong. Yeah. Have you not seen the world? Do you think something is wrong? How come people are starving children, and then you have people burning money in the other end? Something is not right. You don't have to be a genius. Like, who designed that? Who said that's okay? And if you're questioning that, you don't go ahead and allow yourself to be distracted with the crap that's out there to what? Dumb down your brain. And you say, I'm looking at history, and this looks like a complete looping over and over again. Somebody in the lineage, somebody in the divine line, somebody has to wake up. Okay, and now we have access to things that have been hidden, that have not been translated. The Nag Hammadi, you know, I'm a big promoter of the Nag Hammadi Gnostic Gospels. That's how I received Gnosis. I mean, I've been on the path, but that's the one that went, boop, it explained everything. So now there are those of us that are no longer in the matrix. We're out of the matrix. We could observe the matrix and say, oh, wow. Now, is it easy being awake in this world? Not necessarily. It's not easy being awake. But now you have the responsibility in your own way and in your own terms. One, don't fall into the trappings. Okay, I'm not going to fall into fear. Okay, two, as you move into that, your spiritual power will come online. You just have a higher level where you could go in confidence, like the Cathars. Okay, that I use them as a role model. They knew stuff. They said, no, no, we're not going to succumb to the powers that be when we know better. We're going to stay in authenticity. Guess what? Their writings are still around today for those people that want to tap into that, become inspired for these times that we find ourselves in. So, all I'm going to say is that number one, we are not alone. Just because we can't see, okay, like the experience I had, but you could feel energetically or you could sense, okay, take that as real because it is real, okay, because we're not just these physical bodies, we're way more than that. So the limit, I see the physical body, it holds the temple, so yes, you take good care of it, okay, and we have an electron spin that can be sped up even more, that we can actually vibrate our bodily cells and organs into a higher frequency band. That's when you start showing light on your skin, become more luminous. Okay, that is the ascension of the physical body, which is possible for all of us right now. We don't have to leave the body to ascend. We could ascend while in the body. So there's a lot of great news. There's a lot of joy and happiness where we are right now. But also, too, it requires us to pull forward our truth that's embedded in our very DNA into the atomic and subatomic levels of ourself that resonates and understands truth when it becomes exposed to it and when it does react to what is not truth, no matter how old and cryptic it may be. We got to look at things with a new spiritual eyes to discern how we move forward. With that, I say namaste, beautiful family of light on Facebook Live. We will see you next time.